opposite.
Yeah.
Temps look nice, though, for a little Thanksgiving Day cornhole.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Not too bad. Like low 80s out there. It's beautiful. It's
Get
Florida.
outside.
Yeah, there you go.
Josh, thanks everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on Week News this morning.
Our next newscast is an hour away on CBS. Look at that tree lighting later on tonight. It's going to be a lovely one. Have a great Monday.
This is Wink Tracks the Tropics, powered by the Weather Authority.
When the tropics are active and timing is everything, the Weather Authority is keeping you prepared.
The latest update did come in from the National Hurricane Center. Helene moving north-northeast. Winds have increased up to 90 miles per hour.
Keeping you informed.
It's now 170 miles northwest of us, and as we had mentioned, this is a major Cat 4 hurricane. This is going to have major landfall implications.
Southwest Florida has seen its fair share of storms in the past few years.
We are leaving immediately after this because it is not safe. You're starting to see some of these debris, sticks flying up and out, and it's one of the reasons why Sanibel is evacuated. It clearly is not safe out here.
But our slice of paradise has bounced back in ways we'd never expected.
It's tough.
We had each other, and that's a good thing.
I wouldn't have made it without Marianne. We're gonna make it though. We're gonna make it.
Wink News has been there with you every step of the way. That won't change.
Yes, we avoid the worst part of the storm, but the wind field's growing and the pressures are deepening. We're going to feel more of that influence on the back end with the surge.
From forecast cones to safety tips, the Weather Authority team has you covered. You're watching Wink Tracks the Tropics.
All right, welcome in and happy Monday, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to today's edition of Wink Tracks the Tropics. I'm meteorologist Josh Green checking in today. And I'll tell you what, it's almost over. I mean, we can see the finish line. It is less than a week away. That is all we have left of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. But there are still things that we are monitoring and tracking out there. There's been a little bit of buzz on social media about a few things this past weekend. So I'm here today to address that. I'm also going to be talking a little bit of our local forecast closer to home. Obviously, Thanksgiving week. There's lots of travel plans out there. We are in the midst of a worsening drought. So I'll be touching on all of those details as well. The best thing about this platform, it is interactive. Any questions or comments that you may have, or if I just wanted to let us know where you're watching from, I'd love to hear from you. You can tune in, chime in to our chat there on YouTube and Facebook as well. We'll be monitoring that and looking forward to hearing from you. Without further ado, we'll start off with what we always start off with, that countdown clock, because yes, each and every day, gets a little bit shorter out there. 6 days left in the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, which does come to a close at the conclusion of this month. Now, the National Hurricane Center is currently not watching any potential areas for development out there. They are on board with my thinking as well. There will not be any new development expected through the end of this season. So through November 30th, absolutely no chance of anything developing out there. Of course, we always kind of look into the details here at the Weather Authority, so I want to show you what some of the latest ensemble runs are showing. Now, these are different computer models. I'm going to show you 3 different computer models. The European, that's this one. I'm going to show you the GFS, which is the American. I'll also show you the Google AI model. That's a new one that performed relatively well, especially the back half of this season. The graphic that you're seeing right here, remember, ensemble members. There's about 50 or so ensemble members of each individual model. right? So in the European model, you've got 50 different little models that are running that are all based off initial starting conditions in the atmosphere and different final conditions and what they expect to be going on in the atmosphere. And this particular one will spit out where they think areas of low pressure will develop. Now, keep in mind, not all areas of low pressure need to be indicative of an actual tropical system, right? Pretty much the only place right now that's hospitable for a tropical system would be deep in the southern Caribbean. That's that little circle area that I've mentioned right there. And you can see only a couple of, again, the 50 different ensemble members of the European model are showing any sort of chance of development down there. That's really good news. That has been a trend over the past now several weeks. We love to see that. This is the Google AI model, which also shows a few different of the ensemble members trying to spin up an area of low pressure down in the southern Caribbean and pull it off towards the northwest. That's a signal that has been a little bit stronger than what the Google AI has been showing over the past few days. But again, this brings us all the way out through December 4th, and you can see that those areas of low pressure are just kind of spinning up at that point, and they're all relatively weak, and there's not a whole lot of the ensemble members, so there's not a lot of support overall. Therefore, this is not a strong signal either. If you follow the tropics and you've been listening to us throughout the hurricane season, you know that the GFS does its own thing. It's on its own agenda. It spits out a bunch of ghost storms all of the time. About 90 to 95% of the time, these model runs for the GFS are showing something that ends up never coming to fruition at all. Similar situation ongoing right here. A few more of the GFS ensemble members are a little bit more bullish on the fact that we could see an area of low pressure develop in the southern Caribbean. And there's also, you know, the singular model run of the GFS. That's the one that you see sometimes that actually shows you what the storm could look like. Over the past couple of days, there's been a few of the runs, remember these models run every 6 hours or so, that show the GFS spinning up some sort of tropical system down there in the Caribbean and trying to pull it off towards the north. Now, there are several reasons why at this point the Atlantic Basin is inhospitable for tropical systems, especially in the Gulf. Let's start off with water temperatures, right? As a baseline, these need to be about 80 degrees or so in order to not only form but support a tropical system, because it's like gasoline to a car. That's what warm water is for a tropical system. So right now in the Caribbean, the water is still warm enough, right? I've kind of marked a few of those sea surface temperatures right there within the past hour or so. One as hot as 85 degrees in the southern Caribbean. I think most of the Caribbean is running about 80 to 84 degrees at this time. But you notice as you look further north, look at the waters in the Gulf. Absolutely too cool at this point to support any sort of tropical development whatsoever, right? So let's say the season ends and an area of low pressure tries to get going in the Caribbean. The chances of it moving any further north are very, very slim. There's a reason why there's only been literally one landfalling tropical system in the United States ever in the month of December. It was back on 1925. It was December 1st of 1925, and it was actually right here in Southwest Florida around Bonita Beach. It was a stronger end tropical storm. So again, that was 100 years ago, and that was the only time that we've had a landfalling tropical system in the United States. So it goes to show how incredibly difficult it is for these tropical systems to form that late in the year. We've got a few of our viewers tuning in. Krista chiming in saying thank you, but thank you for watching. We appreciate you there. Again, if you guys have any questions or comments about what we're talking about here, feel free to throw them in the chat section. I'll be watching those. Now, I mentioned that the sea surface temperatures at this point are just getting too cool to support tropical systems in the Gulf. Now I want to show you another factor that is working against tropical development. That is wind shear, and there is a lot of it across the Gulf, southwestern Atlantic, and the Caribbean right now. This is also a telltale sign that we've really switched gears from hurricane season to more of the cooler season. And I can actually put this into motion over the next 6 days. And that wind shear is just not letting up whatsoever from now all the way throughout the conclusion of the upcoming weekend. In fact, there's likely even more of that shear building, especially across the Gulf. So the environment is not very hospitable for these tropical systems. Overall, we have a very weak signal from a handful of models trying to spin up that area of low pressure in the southern Caribbean. So overall, chances of development very slim. Certainly not anything through the conclusion of the actual hurricane season. Does that mean we ignore it? Do we ignore it, meaning here at the Weather Authority? No, absolutely not. You have absolutely nothing to look at right now. We'll continue to monitor that trend, but if it continues to push back later in date and continues to really fall apart and continue to not show a strong signal at all, that means that we are good to go. So that's what's currently going on, again, in the tropics. Tomorrow afternoon, the Climate Prediction Center will release their weekly outlook, which kind of describes any tropical hazards that could be expected over the next 2 to 3 weeks, likely encompassing that would be about the last week or the first week, at least the tail end of December, and into the second week of December as well. So it'll be interesting to see their thinking when it comes to this potential area of low pressure. That, again, very weak signal at this point. I'm not expecting anything of it myself, but it will be interesting if they try to mark it with at least a low end chance. So that's something that you'll be able to see when you tune in on Wednesday for the final edition of Wink Tracks the Tropics. So overall, I really like our chances as we close out the season and even looking ahead past that as well. So just another final recap again of what we've seen so far. 13 named storms, 5 of which have become hurricanes. 4 of those 5 hurricanes went on to become major hurricanes. So based on the average that we see throughout the season, typically we see about 14 named storms, so we're pretty much right below that. We're pretty much right below the threshold for the total of hurricanes as well. We are slightly above the average for major hurricanes, but again, it's not always about the number, it's about the impact and perspective, right? The United States did not see any landfalling hurricanes, had 1 tropical storm. There weren't any hurricanes moving around in the Gulf either, but our friends down in the Caribbean, absolutely. Western Jamaica having to deal with tied for the most powerful storm to make landfall on record in the Atlantic Basin. And also our friends in Bermuda had to deal with a handful of storms as well. So that's a little recap so far of tropics. Again, tomorrow I think we'll reassess some of those models just so I can kind of show you the inconsistencies that I've been seeing over the past few days that are likely going to continue over the next few days as well. So make sure to tune in for that. Good to go on that front. I'll take you a little bit more local right now. We'll start off with our Wink Weather Watcher Spotlight. Check out this beautiful picture out of Rotundo Meadows and Villas this morning, courtesy of one of our weather watchers, George. As the sun began to rise, there was also a little bit of fog out there as well. And this is a great transition because one of our viewers, Daniel, just asked a question, why was there fog today in Tampa? And the reason why, I'll actually show you the front itself, but there is a stationary front, we call it a boundary, that's parked right over pretty much central Florida right now. And what this is doing, it's stirring up a little bit of moisture out there. The dew points are matching what the temperatures are in the morning, so it's mild and muggy, and all of a sudden you can get that air to saturate, and since there's not a whole lot of wind out there either, it's not mixing up what's going on at the surface, so you start to see that fog develop closer to the surface. And again, the reason why, there's a lot of moisture down at the surface, the dew points are high, and the temperatures are matching what those dew points get to, therefore you see the cloud formation, which we call fog at the surface. So that's why, not only today, but over the past, I'd say week or so, we've had areas of patchy fog, sometimes a little bit more dense than others, especially today in west central Florida because of that stationary boundary that's pretty much parked right over top of us. Of course, this week is Thanksgiving. Perhaps you are flying out of RSW later on this afternoon in Southwest Florida, or perhaps you have family that'll be flying in. There's not going to be any issues closer to home whatsoever. It'll be great flying weather here. I am looking at a few different spots across the country as well. Spots like Atlanta, Boston, Charlotte, even over through New York City, looking good to go for today. Spots like Chicago, Minneapolis, a very slight chance for rain. Overall, not too bad there. Kansas City, better chance for rain there. There's actually a storm system that's sweeping across the southeast, specifically a little bit further west, right? We're talking about East Texas, over through Louisiana, portions of Arkansas and Mississippi. That looks to be the big travel issue for today. So something to keep in mind if you or anyone you know will be traveling in those areas. Closer to home today, remember I mentioned earlier, we've got a very slim chance to see a few showers out there. All right, this is the rain coverage map for today. Notice most of Southwest Florida will be dry, but I mentioned that front there, right? That front's parked over west central Florida. That should be enough to maybe squeeze out a stray shower here and there. I think the best chances today likely going to be for southern Collier County, I'd say along and south of that Alligator Alley corridor, and the timing on that will likely be late this afternoon into early this evening. I'll tell you what, folks, again, most of us are going to end up staying dry across Southwest Florida, but we could really use at least a little bit of rainfall. I mean, that streak continues to grow. How many days we've been so far without seeing that rain? I'm waiting for that to load, but once it does, I mean, the numbers are pretty astonishing, right? At this point, we're looking at around close to a month without any measurable rainfall across much of the region. I want to show you what the future track is kind of spitting out, and I do tend to agree with it. We'll be staying dry throughout the midday hours, and notice as we head towards later on this afternoon, perhaps around 4 to 5 p.m., a few showers begin to develop. Perhaps a stray, very light, quick hitting shower or two along the coast. Most of us stay dry, but keep your attention further south. Look at inland Collier County as we head towards this evening. Notice this is both the graph, which is our in-house model, and the HER, two of these high-resolution models that are picking up a good chance for at least a few showers, again, primarily there in further inland Collier County and further south as well. Will a few of those try to make their way closer to the coast near Marco Island, Naples? They will try. Is it likely? Not so much, all right? That's why that rain coverage today is only at 20%, which means 80% of our coverage area across Southwest Florida will not be seeing the rain. And here is that calendar that I mentioned, right? That calendar that continues to grow the number of days that we've had so far without any measurable rainfall. 28, Naples and Fort Myers. Punta Gorda, it's been 25 days. Maybe in Naples, we could get a little bit, maybe even 1/100th of an inch. That would put an end to the streak. We'll have to see how that shakes out later on. The chances are certainly lower in Fort Myers and Punta Gorda today. And here is a really cool graphic we put together this morning, kind of outlining the wettest years on record versus the driest, where we are right now. Currently, that's the number towards the top of your screen. And keep in mind, these records have been kept since 1892. We are at a 17.5-inch rainfall deficit in Fort Myers. These are measurements taken there at Page Field. So, you know, I know there's a lot of us that live along and maybe just to the east of I-75 that have seen our fair share of rain so far. And there's those of us that live just to the west of I-75 that have not seen much at all. That's the case there at that number measurement in Fort Myers. Compare that with the driest. Pretty close, all right? 31 inches, that's what we ended up with in 1964. But look at that. The wettest year on record, if you remember, it was just last year. All right, so what just a giant difference just a year can make based on rainfall totals, especially the lack of tropical systems this year has really continued to keep those numbers on the low side. Of course, the most obvious result of a lack of rainfall is going to be that drought. Right? We're seeing moderate drought conditions settle in across Southwest Florida. That's that tan color. That's a level 2 out of 5 on the scale. We love using scales in meteorology, right? And so that's encompassing all of Charlotte, DeSoto, Sarasota counties, pretty much all of Lee County as well. It's continuing to push further inland into Glades and Hendry. Most of Collier County right now just experiencing the abnormally dry conditions, but when this gets updated again on Thursday, we do expect that moderate drought to continue to slide to the south. In addition to that, we could see some level 3 out of 5 severe drought begin to settle in, perhaps a little bit further north of us, more so across west central Florida. A little rain would help. Well, here's the catch. Due to some climatological reasons, right, when you look at El Nino versus La Nina winters, we are going to be left with a likely slightly drier than average winter. This is a seasonal outlook put out by our friends at the Climate Prediction Center, outlining the chances to see wetter than average or drier than average conditions for the months of December, January, and February. And you can see, specifically across the southeast, likely going to be a little bit drier than average and perhaps a little bit wetter than average for our friends across the Midwest. Today, it'll be warm out there. We're looking at highs topping out in the mid-80s. Compare that with our normal temperature this time of year, which is around 80 degrees. All right, this is what I want to show you. This whole time I've been talking about this front that's draped across the state of Florida, right? That's a stationary front. It's not moving, and it's actually going to continue to slide to our north instead of our south. That warm front is going to win out, and when it does so, it's going to keep us on the warm side with a good mix of sun and clouds over the next couple of days. Rain chances very minimal. We're keeping that at just 10% for Tuesday and Wednesday. Let's move into Thursday. Of course, that's Thanksgiving. Look at this. A stronger cold front will be pushing across the state of Florida. On Thanksgiving, I do expect it to be a little bit more on the cloudy side. All right, perhaps not totally overcast, maybe a few hints of sunshine here and there, but overall it's not going to be all the sunshine that we're seeing specifically like on a day like today. Now, there's not a lot of moisture associated with this front, therefore it is not going to squeeze out a lot of rain, especially by the time it gets down here into southwest Florida. So again, we're keeping those rain chances very minimal, 10 to 20% on Thanksgiving. Most of us stay dry. It is not going to be cold on Thanksgiving either. In fact, it is still going to be warm. It's likely going to be around 80, 82 degrees in the afternoon. That cooler and drier air is going to move in once the front passes through. Starting Thursday night, when you wake up Friday morning, it is going to be noticeably cooler, noticeably less humid. I think Friday and Saturday of this week are going to be absolutely beautiful days out there, and it is not going to be quite as toasty as what it has been over the past few days. Look at our morning lows forecast over the next 7 days, staying on the mild side overnight tonight, Tuesday morning, Wednesday, and Thursday morning as well. But waking up Friday and Saturday mornings, very briefly, we will be down into the 50s. If you're excited about that, let me know. I know some folks like the more mild and muggy conditions, but I think mid-50s, honestly, is not too cold, and especially when you pair that with the low humidity, it should be beautiful out there. You know, you want to open up the windows after you cook on Thanksgiving, right? On the Friday morning, get all the good smells kind of lingering out of the house, right? So I think Friday is going to be a perfect day to do that. And as that front moves through, it's also going to get a little bit breezy out there. Breezy at times, likely from Thursday through Sunday. Overall, that's nice, right? Because that breeze is going to make it feel just a little bit more comfortable out there. All right. What do you say now we put this all together in our 7 and 10 day forecast? Again, we're staying warm with a good mix of sun and clouds today, tomorrow, Wednesday. Thursday on Thanksgiving, expect to see just a few more clouds out there compared to what we've seen the past couple of days. Rain chances today, a few showers possible. I showed you where's more likely, but notice 10% coverage Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, don't be expecting it. Friday, absolutely not, because the front is going to move through late on Thursday. That means the temperatures will start to drop heading into Friday morning. Friday afternoon, your daytime highs will be in the 70s instead of the 80s. Saturday, another beautiful day starting off in the mid-50s, warming up to around 80 degrees in the afternoon. But notice that warm-up trend really quick. Heading into Sunday and the first half of the work week next week, our highs get right back into the mid-80s, and our morning lows very unseasonably warm. Typically, those are around 60 degrees this time of year. We're going to be right back into the mid to even upper 60s looking ahead towards Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. I'll check in on our chat real quickly as well. Casper checking in. Good morning to you. Will Matt have an opportunity to make an appearance on Track the Tropics? Who knows? We've got 2 more days. You'll have to tune in to find out. Carol chiming in as well, saying the best. Well, we appreciate you for tuning in, Carol. I'll tell you what, just a quick recap about what we've talked about today. Again, when it comes to the tropics, things are quiet. It's going to be finished in about 6 days. That's when the season comes to a close. We've got that weak signal down in the Southern Caribbean. That's something that I'm going to be staying on top of for you guys, both on air and online as well. And if you don't hear us mention it on air, that means there's nothing to worry about. Trust me. We mention everything on air that is worth mentioning. And just those weak signals, again, I address them because we've seen some chatter on social media. So I figured I'd lay it out for you, just kind of get an idea of what we continue to look at as well, even as the season officially comes to a close before any of those models try to pop anything up. So that's what I'll be watching for you here over the next few days. You enjoy this week. It'll be lovely out there. And we, of course, will look forward to that cool down for the state of Florida after Thanksgiving for the days following. That'll do it for me here today for Wink Tracks the Tropics. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to tune in again tomorrow, same time, same place at 11 a.m. We'll check back in on some of those long-range ensemble models. We'll get an idea of what the trends have been over the past 24 hours, and we'll talk a little bit more about that Thanksgiving forecast as well. Have a great rest of your Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Tuesday.